Once upon a time, there was an age in which people went to enjoy themselves, unencumbered by technology, with the memory of the event retained within their own heads. Today, we record the event, and the act of recording then becomes the event. Days later, we review the event, peering at the tape, film, video, in order to see what we would have seen had we been looking. We then show the recorded event to others so they too can experience what we would have seen had we been looking, even if they don't care to experience it, thank you. Given the state of our attention-grabbing economy and the host of variable rewards baked into this era of technological wonders, it's evident we need to further the cause of design ethics. This requires innovating products that engage us all in more meaningful, more therapeutic, and more life-enhancing ways. This work could not be a more vital challenge for fuzzies and techies to tackle. Remember, product design is a form of storytelling and a form of translation from an analog world to the digital universe. Products built with insights from the study of human nature, informed by both fuzzy and techie, tell the most compelling stories. 6. Enhancing the ways we learn. One of the remarkable ironies regarding the raging debate over the need for our schools to focus more on teaching science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, is that many of the technology experts in Silicon Valley are sending their children to soft schools. These are schools that emphasize building the precise skills that a liberal arts college education seeks to foster, chief among those being intellectual curiosity and confidence, creativity, strong interpersonal communication, empathy for others, and a love of learning and problem solving. In 2011, the New York Times ran an article entitled "A Silicon Valley School That Doesn't Compute," highlighting how the chief technology officer of eBay, along with employees of Google, Apple, Yahoo, and Hewlett-Packard, send their children to the Waldorf School of the Peninsula in Los Altos, California, one of some 160 private schools around the United States that follow the Waldorf method of instruction. Also known as Steiner education, because it was originally based on the educational philosophy of Rudolf Steiner. The Waldorf moniker derives from 1919, when the Waldorf Astoria Cigarette Company in Stuttgart, Germany, first instituted the program to teach the children of its employees. The method focuses on physical activity and hands-on creative learning, including play, for the early childhood years, and in the elementary years, a key emphasis is on building social skills and artistic ability. At the secondary school level, there is particular focus on critical thinking, as well as instilling understanding and empathy toward others. Perhaps most surprising for a school in the heart of Silicon Valley is that in the classrooms of the Waldorf School of the Peninsula, there are no screens at all. The technology company executives who send their children there understand that, as education researcher Michael Horn argues, machines are automating a whole bunch of these things, work tasks. So having the softer skills, knowing the human touch and how to complement technology is critical, and our education system is not set up for that. Harvard economist David Deming has done research that provides strong backup for the value of human touch in today's job market, and for the future. In a paper entitled "The Growing Importance of Social Skills in the Labor Market," published in 2015, he shows that the market for science, technology, and engineering jobs has been contracting, while the fastest growth in high-skilled jobs is in those professions that require strong interpersonal skills, such as law, nursing, and business management. Yet, as Horn notes, the stress on STEM skills has drowned out attention to the critical need to build better soft skills. With the implementation in the United States of Common Core curriculum in K-12 public education, which puts a heavy focus on teaching and measuring specific skills, time for instruction of any kind beyond that rigid core is becoming increasingly squeezed. In addition, with the added stress on proving the efficacy of instruction through standardized tests, making the case for the value of teaching the soft skills has become more difficult, as they're not easily evaluated by standardized tests. The soft skills have quietly become our educational dark matter, like the enormous amount of matter in the universe that can't be measured by astronomers, but that they know profoundly shapes the nature of the solar system. So how do we foster the soft skills, the creative confidence, a sense of adventure in learning, and a wide-ranging curiosity in our children that are so important, while also equipping them with the necessary knowledge of technology as well as the other STEM disciplines? How do we give students the right skills, the so-called right stuff, namely those qualities like character, leadership, and competence? How do we achieve a fuzzy techie balance in education that will give them the best opportunity for success? The good news is that a recent innovation boom in education is producing numerous promising approaches and tools, with much of this work focusing on combining technology tools with human wisdom about how we learn. Educational tech startups are being hotly pursued. Since 2010, venture capitalists have plowed more than $2.3 billion into companies seeking to address K-12 education. In short, great strides are being made, moving beyond outdated and largely ineffective approaches in combining technology and education. Finding the right balance in teaching. The effort to integrate technology tools into education stretches back a few decades, albeit with mostly disappointing results. Distance learning programs, for example, which offer all classes remotely by computer, have been the subject of much controversy, with critics asserting that the lack of person-to-person classroom time undermines teaching quality. To consider just one case in point, the outcomes for students of the Electronic Classroom of Tomorrow, ECOT, an online publicly funded charter school operating out of Columbus, Ohio, are troubling. The school, which serves more than 17,000 students across the state, boasts of having some of the largest graduating classes in America. But upon closer investigation, their numbers are, in the parlance of Silicon Valley, referred to as vanity metrics, seemingly impressive results that really aren't true of indicators of success. In a 2016 story entitled "Online School Enriches Affiliated Companies If Not Its Students," the New York Times pointed out that according to federal data on ECOT, 80 students drop out for every 100 students who graduate. The students who ECOT is primarily catering to have special needs, such as medical issues, or have had a history of behavioral problems in school. Plus, the lack of one-on-one classroom supervision and personal engagement with teachers seems to exacerbate the dropout problem. By the way, the dropout issue is by no means isolated to this one school. Dropout rates of other online-only schools are also much higher than the national average. The national high school graduation average is 82%. But a report by America's Promise Alliance, a consortium of education advocacy organizations, reveals that the average graduation rate for online schools hovers around 40%, less than half that of physical schools. In 2014, the ECOT graduated less than 39% of its senior class. The New York Times went so far as to say that publicly funded online schools like the Electronic Classroom have become the new dropout factories. More promising is the explosion of online self-teaching tools in recent years, most notably those courses provided by the nonprofit Khan Academy, and the advent of massive open online courses, or MOOCs as they're known, offered both by traditional universities, including many of the Ivy League colleges, and by private firms such as Coursera and Udacity. Salman Khan, the founder of Khan Academy, recognized the need for tutorials to augment students' learning in school when he began helping his cousin with her math homework. He created hundreds of short videos that broke lessons down into extremely easy-to-follow instructions, and the Khan Academy library of tutorials has now grown to cover the full school curriculum, as well as offering practice exercises and tools for teachers. At the college level, MOOCs are now available across a wide swath of university education, and many are taught by leading experts in their fields. These services are bringing high-quality instruction to the masses, making it available at either no cost or at a much reduced cost, and they are certainly to be applauded. But the truth is, this kind of self-guided instruction online also has limits. The completion rates for most MOOCs are, for example, quite low. The bottom line is that these tools are wonderful augmentations to traditional person-to-person education, but should not be considered as ultimate replacements for person-to-person instruction. Educational innovators looking for new approaches have been exploring how we can pair the amazing capabilities of technology, its broad reach, its ability to deliver vast amounts of information at lightning speed, and its potential for innovative forms of interactive instruction, with the vital human touch of personal engagement with both teachers and other students. One of those individuals leading the way is Esther Wojcicki, a fuzzy and a journalism teacher at Palo Alto High School known as Pally, who has for decades advocated a style of teaching known as blended learning. This approach, in which she has been a pioneer, harnesses the power of technology in order to facilitate it. Innovating to improve blended learning. Different experts define blended learning in their own unique ways, but in essence, it involves incorporating technology tools into hands-on, largely self-directed and project-based instruction. A May 2011 report by Insight Institute identified 40 different organizations that support 48 models for blended learning. Some prescribe mostly classroom-based learning, with a teacher lecturing and only relatively small doses of self-guided learning by students on computers. At the other end of the spectrum, all courses are viewed online, and the teacher becomes a coach or tutor, roaming the classroom to observe, answer questions, and advise as students work on projects during class time. Some schools use technology in the classroom to personalize instruction, meaning that students are allowed to move through course material at their own pace. Still, other schools use technology to add hours to the school day outside their walls. Overall, students are said to find blended learning a more engaging style of instruction than the traditional lecture-based model. Since 1984, Esther Wojcicki has taught at Palo Alto High School, a public high school. There, she has been a pioneer in the field of blended learning. At Palo Alto High School, she's an institution, known affectionately as Woj, the favorite teacher of many students both past and present. She is also the mother of 3 high-profile women in Silicon Valley. Janet, who is a professor of pediatrics at UCSF Medical School, Susan, who is the CEO of YouTube, and Anne, who is the founder of the genomics testing company 23andMe, who was married to Google co-founder Sergey Brin. Google was created in her daughter's garage, so Woj clearly has direct lines to the vanguard of innovation. Woj was an English major at UC Berkeley and also studied French history at the Sorbonne, but she's no Luddite. She was, in fact, one of the first to bring computers into the classroom. She was so excited by her first encounter with a Macintosh in 1987 that she immediately applied for a grant and secured funds to buy a number of Macs for her students to use. She's never stopped exploring ways to enhance her teaching with technology. Recently, she helped lead the Google Teacher Academy, which runs free seminars for teachers from all around the world that introduce them to technology tools for use in teaching and the latest methods being developed. She also co-authored the 2015 book Moonshots in Education, Launching Blended Learning in the Classroom, which offers a wealth of advice and inspiration to educators about the potential of the approach. Recognizing her trailblazing influence, the Rhode Island School of Design awarded her an honorary degree in 2016. I've been fortunate to know Woj for nearly 20 years, having met her when I joined the founding team of Verde, a feature magazine I helped launch and edit while I was one of her students at Palo Alto High School. Being in her class was indeed memorable. From the very first day, Woj put her blended learning philosophy into practice, immediately having us vote for who would play which roles in publishing Verde, with some of us becoming editors and others working on page design, using the then newfangled Adobe PageMaker and Photoshop programs. We even sold advertising, charging a then fledgling startup called Google $800, we should have asked for stock, for the back page while the company was still running out of Woj's daughter's garage. Woj then told us our production schedule and wished us good luck. She has joked that blended learning is the laziest form of teaching because, as a teacher, you delegate everything to your students. But in truth, as Woj did with us, the teacher carefully observes the students as they work on their projects, always available to offer insights and to help steer them. Vital, however, is that teachers relinquish the strict control of the traditional lecturing style of classroom teaching. This is essential so that students are not subject to a command and control hierarchy in the classroom, but rather learn how to independently self-manage and how to interact thoughtfully with their peers, assisting one another, asking one another for help, and collaborating on projects, just as is so important for colleagues in work life to do. In 2009, Woj and her team began pursuing a career technical education grant from the state of California to create the New Media Arts Center, a teeming state-of-the-art space of innovation at the high school level, where largely self-directed students now produce live television and radio programming, content-rich newspapers, and multiple magazines. Among the high-profile public figures attending the 2014 ribbon cutting were Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin, Huffington Post founder Arianna Huffington, and actor James Franco, an alumnus of the program who's even painted murals around the building. When I visited the Arts Center, I was reminded of the hyper-busy Bloomberg TV headquarters in New York City. It was a comparable hive of activity. The light-filled atrium is littered with beanbags, but I didn't see any students lounging. They were buzzing with purpose, some working on the center's daily newscast, others monitoring live streaming of video stories from soundproof studios. The atrium is designed to host regular public events, such as lectures, and featured on stage that day was a startup founder, who I was to learn had received funding from Benchmark Capital, the venture capital firm that invested in Stitch Fix and Uber. He was giving a presentation about his company's technology architecture, speaking to the Android Developers Club. The center doesn't just stimulate cutting-edge tech journalism, with New Yorker quotes indelibly scrawled into tiles in the bathrooms, and benches elegantly constructed out of retired Apple computers, such as those we used when I was editor. It is truly both a digital hub and a place of interpersonal exchange and community. As Jack Brock, the editor of Verde, put it, there's a lot of investment in the STEM fields because it's Silicon Valley. Pally invests in the arts. Indeed, next door to the New Media Arts Center is a $29 million center for the performing arts. Over lunch, Woj explained that blended learning fosters creative confidence and complex problem-solving in students. The learning by doing philosophy allows students not only to struggle with projects but also to fail, teaching that such failures are inevitable and that perseverance is vital to success. It teaches that learning and accomplishment are not simply a matter of memorizing information and reciting it in tests. It encourages students to be creative and work out their own solutions, rather than expecting to be given the answers. In the last few years, a handful of studies have shown students making impressive gains with the help of blended learning tools and techniques. In 2010, SRI International conducted a study on blended learning entitled Evaluation of Evidence-Based Practices in Online Learning for the U.S. Department of Education. It looked at blended learning studies from 1996 through 2008 and found that studies in these kinds of environments generally outperformed their peers in classes that take place fully in person, and also outperformed classes that took place fully online. In sum, students in blended environments outperformed both fully fuzzy and fully techie approaches. A series of case studies released in September 2015 by the Evergreen Education Group and the Clayton Christensen Institute for Disruptive Innovation also showed great gains in some school districts that have adopted blended learning models. In Middletown, New York, students in blended learning classrooms rotated through stations for math, reading, and other subjects, sometimes working on a computer, other times with a teacher or small group. Those students scored 18% higher in reading and 7% higher in math on the state tests. In Spokane, Washington, the educational district saw its graduation rate climb from 60% in 2007 to 83% in 2014 after instituting blended learning curricula across multiple programs. In April 2016, MIT's Online Education Policy Initiative issued a report entitled Online Education, a Catalyst for Higher Education Reforms, examining where online education fits into higher education. Created in 2013 to focus on a radical proposal for blended learning at MIT that included freshman and senior years that were conducted almost entirely online, the task force recommended that schools focus on people and processes, not on technology. Specifically, it stated that online learning will not replace teachers, just as the fly-by-wire system has not replaced aircraft pilots. But just as a fly-by-wire aircraft control system enables a human pilot to operate her aircraft more effectively, through dynamic digital scaffolding, a human teacher could affect differentiated instruction to a large number of students and achieve overall class learning objectives. Aided by technology, teachers can refocus their efforts on the aspects of learning that online tools cannot provide, including coaching and fostering reflection and creative thinking. Legions of educators are working to enhance the practice of blended learning. Esther Wojcicki helped organize the Google-sponsored Moonshot Summit in order to showcase their innovations and to spur sharing of ideas and results. The summit has spawned an avid community bursting with recommendations about apps for education and other tools and approaches. There is far too much happening to cover more than a sliver in this chapter, but I did feel compelled to share a few examples of a few pioneers who are achieving particularly exciting results. Escape rooms inspire student-led learning. James Sanders has had a number of light bulb moments in his life. The most recent came while he was playing an escape room game in Edmonton, Canada. Escape games are problem-solving situations where participants must solve a series of clues and puzzles to escape from a physical room within a specific time frame. Similar to whodunit games like Clue, escape room games leap into real life. For video game aficionados, they are analog role-playing games. For theater buffs, they are immersive theater, similar to performance installations such as Sleep No More, an adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth performed by London's Punch-Drunk Theatre Group and brought to life in a multi-story mansion in Manhattan. But in Canada, James Sanders was there to attend the Google Education Summit with a group of high school students and teachers, and they had decided that playing an escape game would be a great way to spend their evening. Sanders was struck that a group of students would willingly choose to spend their night off playing a game that required them to do some intensive critical thinking. He saw an engagement and enthusiasm in their collaboration that he knew could be magical in the classroom. Sanders, a classic liberal arts undergraduate, studied social studies and history at Western Washington University, where he developed a strong interest in education. He became involved in a revamping of the educational requirements at the school, a component of which was finding ways for the university to leverage technology tools better. Upon graduating, he won a coveted spot in the Teach for America program and then took a teaching job in South Los Angeles, eventually earning his Master of Arts in Education at Loyola Marymount University and becoming a 6th grade English and Social Studies teacher at Carnegie Middle School in Carson, California. Sanders saw that his students didn't have great access to the new tools of learning, but he was undaunted. In 2009, he decided to take his entire classroom online and was the first teacher in America to go paperless, having his students work via Google Chromebooks instead. As an early adopter of the technology, he was able to get the devices directly from Google. His students loved it, and Google was so impressed it asked him to come on board as a part-time contractor to advise on the development of its marketing strategy for the Chromebook. Sanders took a further plunge into tech-based education when he decided to join the video streaming service YouTube, becoming the company's project manager for all education initiatives, and creating YouTube for Teachers and YouTube for Education. When I joined, he recalls, YouTube was where you found cat videos, not educational videos. Though he loved his work at YouTube, by mid-2012 he had met Esther Wojcicki, and the two came up with an idea for a technology-enabled educational tool, digital badges, or customizable digital accolades that teachers could use to reward their students for mastery of a certain subject. Similar to a Girl Scout or Boy Scout badge, it was a way to create digital waypoints for student academic achievement, and a way to introduce online game mechanics into offline classrooms. Digital badges were as much a behavioral product as they were tech, but they had roots in online gaming. Game mechanics are tools that incentivize engagement through things like playing levels and earning points. They co-founded a company called Class Badges, which provided these free digital badging services to teachers, and they sold the company 2 years later to an educational platform called EdStart. It was a quick win, but Sanders wasn't done innovating in education. After the sale to EdStart, he decided to take a position as entrepreneur in residence at KIPP Bay Area schools, where he collaborated with Salman Khan to help incorporate Khan Academy videos into classroom teaching. From that role, Sanders moved on to become Presidential Innovation Fellow at the White House, helping to develop the Connect ED plan to bring Wi-Fi internet connectivity to 99% of American schools by 2018. His latest innovation, inspired by that night playing the escape room game in Edmonton, is Breakout EDU, a toolkit for engaging students in critical thinking exercises by requiring them to figure out how to open a box. He had originally thought of simply bringing the escape room idea into teaching with games that locked students in the classroom. But, as he recalls, when the team he assembled started researching the idea, we learned quickly that it might be illegal to lock kids in a classroom. He then pivoted to the idea of a game that would give students clues and a set of items with which they would have to figure out how to open a locked box. To accomplish the task, they would encounter all sorts of puzzles that would force them to collaborate. In the summer of 2015, James went to Target to buy a big plastic box, and he ordered hundreds of dollars of different kinds of locks online. He experimented every weekend for 3 months with combinations of different items and different challenges, and ultimately ended up with a kit that was made up of a small lockbox, 6 locks, a black light, an invisible ink pen, a UV light, a USB drive, and 2 hint cards. One teacher at Gravelly Hill Middle School in Efland, North Carolina, created a poetry breakout game where students pretend to be Langston Hughes in Harlem in May 1936. They receive an urgent telegram that Esquire magazine is about to publish their poem, Let America Be America Again, but without giving them credit. They must call the publisher to remedy the situation, but the magazine goes to print in 45 minutes. Students must solve a number of puzzles related to Langston Hughes and his poetry to crack codes, open the locks, and ultimately get Esquire's phone number out of the lockbox. If they fail, they won't get credit for having written one of their greatest works of poetry. While the first breakout lock boxes were made of wood and decidedly non-techie, the learning style is blended, as students solve physical challenges, collaborate as teams, and use the internet to find answers. Just 1 year after launching, the company was selling thousands of kits per month, and teachers were inventing a wealth of new games, with 98% of those that are featured on the company's website being designed by teachers, not by Breakout EDU employees. All of the games must be solved with the same basic kit of items, but the ways in which they can be reassembled are endless. There are games designed for kindergarten-level literacy all the way to advanced placement physics and environmental science. In one designed for computer coding, students input the right code to reveal a quick response, QR barcode, they use to navigate to a hidden website. From there, they solve a number of logic puzzles that help them open physical locks. Mitchell Resnick, a professor of learning research and the head of the lifelong kindergarten group at the MIT Media Lab, has compared these new technology-enabled tools to Froebel's gifts, named after the German educator Friedrich Froebel, the inventor of kindergarten. Froebel created play materials such as a set of wood blocks and a wooden ball, and balls of yarn with a string attached, with which his kindergartners learned through playing. Sanders's breakout EDU kits are play materials that facilitate collaborative learning and the joy of problem-solving in older children. They inspire children to take the failures and frustrations they encounter in solving the puzzles in stride. Plus, the game approach motivates them to stretch their minds, to be creative, and discover solutions, rather than merely looking for answers. Whereas failure on a problem set might engender frustration, in a game it's simply part of the challenge of winning. Engaging students with self-learning. Another researcher who is pushing the boundaries of online education platforms, investing them with more fuzzy awareness of how children can best be inspired to deeply engage with learning, is Sugata Mitra, a professor of educational technology at Newcastle University. His unorthodox experiments in the slums of New Delhi captivated people around the world and became part of the inspiration for the movie Slumdog Millionaire. In 1999, Mitra chopped a hole in the wall of his office building on the edge of a slum in New Delhi and placed a computer inside. Kids flocked to the device and within hours had taught themselves how to browse without any instruction from adults. Soon they were watching videos and had taught themselves enough English that they could email and use the search function to read articles. Mitra proceeded to conduct a series of what he calls hole-in-the-wall experiments, in which children used computers to teach themselves math and science. Mitra was pushing past the blended learning model, in which the teacher acts as a coach, and developing methods in which no teachers are involved. To him, the key staples of learning are the internet and fellow students, and he wants to radically reinvent school instruction. He stresses that forcing humans to memorize a bunch of facts is outdated in the age of the Internet. And even scholars such as Mitchell Resnick agree with Mitra on the point that for questions with clear right answers, teachers are less necessary. Instead of teaching kids a bunch of facts, it's better to teach them to be creative thinkers and good communicators. To him, what will matter in the digital age is an ability to ask questions, to think critically, and to utilize tools to solve problems. In 2013, Mitra was awarded the TED Prize, which came with $1 million in prize money, to put his ideas into practice. He used the money to build learning laboratories to connect children to information through what he calls self-organized learning environments, or SOLs, and to build an online platform to connect and support those environments. He calls his system the School in the Cloud. And his first School in the Cloud laboratory opened inside a traditional high school in Killingsworth, England, in December 2013. In Mitra's approach, children receive a complex question that is designed to stimulate thoughtful conversations, and they are then given a period of time to research it. Questions are open-ended and don't have answers that they can simply look up. For example, a sample question might be, what would happen to the Earth if all the insects disappeared? The point of providing students an imponderable question, or a question for which there are many approaches, is to teach them that the world is not black and white. It is not about memorizing facts, but it is about learning to grapple with challenges that cannot be pinned down. These kinds of questions teach investigatory approaches and comfort in ambiguity. Gray area questions require courage in their approach. Secondarily, they also teach about the various types of sources and how to navigate among them. Are all sources created equal? Or do some require greater rigor, greater accuracy, or accountability? Indeed, these are the very questions we all need to ask as we open the newspaper or turn on the television. Students divide into small groups, each armed with a computer, and using whatever tools they can marshal, Google, Wikipedia, YouTube, or other resources they think up, they try to answer the question they've been presented. They're encouraged to check out what other groups are doing, even to share answers with them. In this paradigm, collaboration is not cheating. It's an effective way to share insights and to problem solve. The competitive spirit drives learning. This model can also be adapted to include teachers, though it's important that teachers not insert themselves into the situation, but rather wait for the students to seek their input. The role of the teacher is less about passing on knowledge and more about being the listener in chief. Kids like to show and tell adults what they've learned, something in which every parent becomes well-schooled. Teachers, or in the case of Mitra's application of his model, other adults, can play an important role in strengthening children's sense of accomplishment. For this reason, Mitra employs what he calls his grandmother method, with some 75 adults mentoring and acting as sounding boards for all of the children in the faraway school, all done over Skype. In preparing our kids for working life, and for jobs that don't yet exist and so can't be trained for, Mitra believes that it's best to teach them how to solve problems. Knowing, as he says, is going obsolete. Providing students with open-ended questions teaches them how to operate in ambiguity, how to compartmentalize a problem, and how to manipulate different tools to achieve different ends. It also spurs them to engage in a depth of inquiry, in which it is as much learning the process of acquiring information as it is the specific knowledge gained that truly matters. Mitra's method may seem extreme, and in fact, it has drawn criticism for the suggestion of leaving children so entirely to themselves in the learning process. Michael Paradowski, a professor of applied linguistics at the University of Warsaw in Poland, challenged the wisdom of this model in an article entitled Classrooms in the Cloud or Castles in the Air, arguing that we need to show them at least some of the possible paths and open the doors so they can look beyond their immediate concerns. But Mitra's TED Prize shined a spotlight on his experiments, and some teachers have tested them closer to home in ways that don't entirely leave educators out of the equation. According to this line of thinking, the teacher's role ought to be in proposing good questions and helping students learn how to use technology tools for finding answers. The goal is to pair the fuzzy and the techie optimally, teaching humans to ask better questions and helping them to learn how to make machines provide better answers. One of the teachers adapting Mitra's methods is Dora Bechtel, who has introduced souls to her second-grade students at the Campus International School, housed at Cleveland State University in Ohio. Similar to Mitra, she asks her students a messy question that doesn't have a black and white correct answer. In a unit about cities, she designed a soul around the question, why do cities change? Designing a soul requires not just devising a broad, ponderable question without a simple answer, but it also involves critical thinking on the part of the teacher to consider some of the guardrails or potentialities. Bechtel worried that her city's question might frustrate her lowest achievers, but when she paired them together, they used videos to learn hard-to-understand concepts, and when they encountered text that was difficult for them to read, they found apps that read the text for them. After a second grader asked, "Could we hear if our ears were square?" his class did a soul around how hearing works, looking into both the physics and the biology of what makes our ears function. Any such question can serve as fodder to explore knowledge using our digital tools. The MC2 STEM High School in Cleveland, Ohio has also adopted souls. In 9th grade, the capstone project is called Rockets and Robots, and students are tasked with building one of each. In addition, they are instructed to answer the question, just because we can make the technology, should we? What a fruitful application of technology to inspire engagement with the issues, as well as the liberal arts and soft skills children will need in working life. Teacher as coach. Diane Taverner is the founder and CEO of Summit Public Schools, SPS, a nonprofit organization based in Silicon Valley. In 2003, Taverner opened Summit Preparatory Charter High School in Redwood City, California, which U.S. News and World Report has called a school of the future. While Redwood City sits at the heart of Silicon Valley, it's a working-class city. The idea behind Summit was to bring all of the area's public school kids, rich or poor, brilliant or underperforming, into the same building, and to teach them in an inclusive environment that was focused on producing well-rounded graduates who were ready for college. Almost half of Summit students are Hispanic, and 42% are low income. In its first decade in operation, 96% of its graduates were accepted into four-year colleges. Summit uses blended learning to focus on four things: cognitive skills, content knowledge, real-life experiences, and healthy habits of success. The school contends these four skills are the most important in enabling students to excel in college and beyond. The school also seeks to foster the soft skills such as self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, interpersonal skills, and responsible behavior. The emphasis in developing thinking skills is on improving decision-making abilities. Look at the economy, Taverner says. It's not about concrete knowledge, it's about higher-order thinking skills and the ability to perpetually learn and grow. Rather than focus on the rote drills so often leaned upon in schools seeking to improve test scores, Summit provides instruction through video presentations, seminars, and hands-on learning. That doesn't mean kids aren't learning facts and figures. It just means that teachers don't waste their most precious resource, time and attention, delivering content. Students have mentors, and all students, not just creative ones, annually partake in 4 two-week learning expeditions into subjects such as art, yoga, film, and music. These experiences are meant to match those of more affluent studies. To teach kids content, Summit banks heavily on technology, which is quite innovative. Tavener wants to provide students with a deeply personalized form of education, allowing teachers to give each student the particular type of instruction that will help them learn at their own pace, to study engaging topics that will help them reach their long-term goals. So Tavener and her team created what they call their Personalized Learning Platform, which is a Common Core aligned program that students log into to see all their projects and learning goals for the year. A progress bar shows them whether they're on track, ahead of schedule, or falling behind in each class. Their progress is visible motivation, but can also serve as a reminder of all that they have to do. By allowing students to take charge of directing their own learning and work at their own pace, Summit is equipping them with the time management skills they'll need in college and later in life. They also learn independence, another skill needed in college, and increasingly in our self-directed gig economy. At the beginning of the school year, students are presented with a list of content knowledge standards they're expected to learn. Summit teachers don't create lesson plans, they're called playlists. Playlists allow students to work at their own pace and teachers to observe how their students are doing. When students click on each concept, the tool launches a playlist that includes a diagnostic assessment so students can see how much they already know about the topic and how much they still have to learn. These playlists include resources like videos and websites, practice materials, and a final assessment to be taken under teacher supervision. Students can also give their feedback on lessons by voting up or voting down resources that are or are not helpful. Plus, content within playlists can be substituted easily. Students spend around 16 hours a week on computers, working their way through lessons in all the traditional content areas. About half of that computer work takes place during school hours, with the rest of it done at home. Teachers become coaches rather than lecturers. They are in the classrooms with students and they monitor students' progress in real time as the day progresses, offering special assistance when a student gets stuck. Students are thus encouraged to do something that's a vital skill for thriving in college and work life: asking for help when you can't figure something out alone. The Summit approach is not about replacing the classroom and teacher, it's about bringing the best of technology into the classroom and reinventing the role of teachers. To date, Summit has created over 700 playlists that don't automate, but supplement teachers. Summit received a big boost of support in 2014 from Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, after they toured the school. They liked what they saw and asked Tavener what they could do to help. Tavener's team was short on programming expertise, and Zuckerberg offered up a team of engineers to help troubleshoot the glitches in the technology system that the school's team had built. The goal is to make an improved version of Summit's personalized learning platform available for free to schools nationwide. Today, it's offering free tools to help 100 public schools across America build their own playlists. Although not all are sold on the model of standardized personalization, calling it somewhat of an oxymoron, the bottom line is that many students arrive at Summit with lower than average scores, and yet Summit consistently outperforms other schools in the area. In spring 2016, 93% of Summit's entering freshmen graduated, and 99% of its graduates were admitted to four-year colleges. Once Summit graduates are in college, their completion rate is double the national average. Although the program is still small, with around 2,500 students, this fresh and innovative approach of in-person, self-directed, blended learning is showing early signs of promise. Better involving parents. Rachel Lockett is a fuzzy, one who realized that she could play a vital role in helping to improve education by working to develop better communication technology to schools and parents. She joined startup Remind, which has built a platform, much like Slack for K-12 education, that facilitates easy and accountable communication among teachers, students, and parents. Rachel had no experience in technology when she decided to go to work at Remind. What she had was a classic liberal arts experience in discovering unexpected ways to apply her talents. After earning her BA in human biology at Stanford, she moved to Baltimore to work at the Annie Casey Foundation, focusing on helping to find foster care for children and to improve juvenile justice. That work got her interested in education because she realized that schools are the first gateway in many children's lives that provide hope. Even if a child grows up in the foster care system, if they go to a good school, they can overcome the difficulties of their upbringing. She decided that education was where she wanted to have a real impact. Rachel's journey in education began when she moved to Boston and joined the Center for Effective Philanthropy, where she met with hundreds of schools and educators who were Gates Foundation grant beneficiaries. She built survey tools and tried to figure out what was really working in education and what wasn't. This experience inspired her to become a teacher. In short, she wanted to get into the trenches. Heading back to California, she received her teacher training through the Aspire Charter Schools, which has a residency program. She taught at Aspire schools in the San Francisco East Bay area for 3 years. The exposure to the innovative energy of Silicon Valley she received from living in San Francisco inspired her to think about how she could use technology to enhance education. What she liked about Remind is that it solves a problem that is one of the most vexing for schools. Parents and teachers are two of the most valuable contributors to society, she explains, and they're often also the most overwhelmed. What we enable through technology is faster, easier, safer communication between parents, teachers, students, and administrators. Rachel understood that she had a comparative advantage as a teacher in helping to develop technology to improve education, and today she's the head of user experience. The Remind offices must have made her feel right at home when she started. Giant paper airplanes hang from the arched wood beams crossing the ceiling. There are hopscotch squares in the entryway, and the front desk is made entirely of wooden 12-inch school rulers. I take a seat on a couch where the pillows are covered in letters and numbers, and then make my way into a conference room where the back wall has a texture that I can't quite make out until I sit down. Upon closer look, the entire wall is covered in number 2 pencils, lined up side by side and end to end, a tight mosaic of wood, eraser, and graphite. The office is modeled as a classroom, but one with transparency and with open, relaxed spaces. Historically, schools have communicated with parents and students by email blasts and robocalls, pre-recorded messages left on voicemail systems. But in an era where most people don't have home phones, many people don't check voicemail, and email directories are outdated, Remind decided that communication had to be done differently. Their idea is to reach people where they are, through the method of an individual's choice. Rachel explains, if your class is math, you tell your students to text @math to a short code such as 81010, or download the app. Then everyone in the room is on your group messenger and you can reach them directly. She joined as a community manager where she spoke the language of education to teachers and administrators. In her year at the company, she's already running all its user experience research, driving product development. Business is going well. The company has raised nearly $60 million from some of the top investors in Silicon Valley, and more than 35 million teachers, parents, and students use it. Remind is putting into practice insights from academic research into how important parental involvement in school can really be in a child's performance. Peter Bergman, a professor of economics and education at Columbia University's Teachers College, is one of the researchers who have contributed to these findings. He teamed up with a school in a poor neighborhood in Los Angeles to test the effect small interventions could have on student performance. The parents of 242 students in grades 6 through 11 were randomly selected to receive additional information about their children's progress at school. A few times each month, a student's family would get an email, text message, or phone call with information on the child's grades and missing assignments. The messages were detailed, including the name of the class, assignment, problems, and page numbers of the missing work. Not surprisingly, with this kind of improved communication, parents became far more involved in their children's education. Those who received additional information contacted the school to talk about their children's progress a stunning 83% more often than those who didn't get the extra information. Attendance at parent-teacher conferences increased by 53%. In response, students got on top of their homework, completing 25% more of their assignments, missing 28% fewer classes, and becoming 24% less likely to display unsatisfactory work habits. These very simple interventions were having a significant impact on parent engagement with teachers and with their children. When students started working harder, they got better results. High school students whose parents were kept well apprised of their performance had GPAs 0.19 standard deviations higher than those whose parents were given only the standard information. Test scores in math increased by 0.21 standard deviations. By comparison, when children began attending the lauded KIPP Academy Lynn Charter School in Massachusetts, test scores improved by 0.35 standard deviations in math and 0.12 in English. Basic text message intervention offers tangible promise, at least in the high schools where it has been tried. These small interventions aren't going to fix the current education system all alone, but they do pack a lot of bang for the buck. Bergman calculated that in this experiment it cost roughly $156 to increase one child's GPA or math score by 0.10 standard deviations, and that's if teachers are doing all of the work manually. Automating parts of the process would likely drop the cost far further. A 2014 study by Ben York and Susanna Loeb, two Stanford University education researchers, corroborated Bergman's work. They examined whether text messaging interventions like those that Bergman used with the parents of high school kids could be used to encourage parents with preschool children to help their kids develop literacy skills. Research has consistently shown that there are huge language gaps between rich kids and those who come from low-income homes, and that those gaps begin to emerge while children are young. In fact, before age 4, wealthier children hear roughly 30 million more words than poorer children. The best way to help close these gaps is to get parents to read to their children often, talk aloud to them, sound out words, point out rhyming words, that kind of thing. But getting parents to consistently do those things is tricky. The most common interventions are regular home visits, which are too expensive to scale, or hours-long workshops that deliver a barrage of parenting advice and then leave parents to remember and use the information at the right time. Instead, York and Loeb decided to try to use simple technology, text messages, to deliver advice to parents when they need it most. They followed 440 families, most of them with low incomes, who had preschool students enrolled in a public school in San Francisco. Half of the families got text messages 3 times a week that had action items that would help develop the children's literacy skills. Here's a sampling of texts that might be sent in a week. Fact: kids need to know that letters make up words. Kids with good letter knowledge become strong readers. Tip: point out the first letter in your child's name in magazines, on signs, and at the store. Have your child try. Make it a game. Who can find the most? Growth: keep pointing out letters. You're preparing your child for K. Now, when you point out a letter, ask, what sound does it make? In contrast, the parents in the control group got one message every 2 weeks with basic information about vaccines or enrolling their child in kindergarten. Parents who got the detailed text messages reported that they were much more likely to do the kinds of literacy activities prescribed in the messages, and more likely to contact their children's teacher to discuss their kids' schooling. And here's the kicker. When students were given literacy tests at the end of the year, those whose parents got the texts were 2 to 3 months ahead of their peers. Plus, the intervention was cheap, less than $1 per child. Home visit programs, by contrast, can cost as much as $10,000 per child and require substantial time. Remind is making this kind of tech communication, which research shows is so important, simple for teachers, students, and parents. It's a communications platform that allows one-to-one or one-to-many communication that is tracked and cannot be deleted. Unlike text messages that are sent via teacher or student phones and can be deleted, the Remind channel offers a safe place for all to engage professionally and accountably. Remind public announcement can also deliver messages in the preferred format for each individual, and it can be translated using Google Translate if the parent's or student's first language isn't English. It engages parents and students who might otherwise be isolated. I was recently speaking with a 6th grade English teacher, Rachel Lockett told me. He talks to the parents of struggling students every other day using Remind. When I asked him how he felt about this, as it was obviously increasing his workload, he said, "No, this is alleviating the hardest part of teaching, which is knowing you have a student who's struggling and not knowing how to help them, or how to communicate with their family to help them improve." Remind is using technology to help build connections and deeper relationships. Paul Andre White, known to his students simply as PA, is the principal of Leal Elementary School in Cerritos, California, and a big fan of Remind. Leal was an early adopter of the technology. When asked about Remind, he gushes with enthusiasm. "It's just awesome," he laughs. "It's amazing how much it has impacted my school culture. Parents are feeling really connected to the school and their kids. Even if it's not about their child, they like to see what's happening at their child's school. If my kid's a kinder, but I'm getting this text about a 5th grade class, my kid's going to be there one day, and it's great to see the innovative things that they're doing, the types of things that they're learning, the ways they're being asked to think. It's really engaged the whole community." Prior to Remind, finding a way to connect with parents was one of the most challenging aspects of teaching. You're relying on a kindergartner to relay a message to a parent, PA remembers. Now he has 700 parents available in his pocket, whom he can text on a moment's notice. I use it to broadcast important messages. It could be a reminder about it being a minimum day, or it could be a classroom spotlight. My teachers use it for homework reminders or to tell a parent, "Hey, your kid learned about this today, so ask them this question." My son is in 1st grade, so I know the drill. "What was your favorite part of today?" "Recess." "What did you learn today?" "I don't know." Instead, you can say, "Hey, I heard you learned about lizards today. How many facts can you remember about them?" It's a way to engage the child and reinforce learning at home. Bottom line, with kindergartners around the age of 5 years old, many of the parents PA is communicating with are under the age of 30. For the parents, this is their reality. Text messaging and internet-based communication are the norm, and by creating a dedicated channel through which to communicate, Remind has shown its ability to nudge behavior. One day, when the power went out, the school went dark for 3 hours. Parents couldn't call us because all of our phones are IP-based and the internet was down, PA recalls. My cell phone worked, so I just sent out a remind, and 90% of my parents knew within minutes that everything was fine and that the power outage was being addressed. When there was a general bomb threat within the LA Unified School District, LAUSD shut down all the schools. Leal is in Los Angeles County, but is in a different school district. I came in early, and our phone was ringing off the hook. As soon as I got the clearance that our district wasn't shut down, I sent out a remind. We had the highest attendance in the district that day. I sent out the remind, the phone calls stopped immediately, and the kids all got to school. PA uses the tool as a broadcast mechanism, but his teachers primarily engage the chat feature to communicate one-to-one with parents. There's a chat feature, so we don't get a parent's number and they don't get ours. You can set up shop hours, so there are boundaries. Messages can't be deleted, they can't be falsified, so teachers feel very protected by that. PA explains. Today, he is helping roll Remind out across the other 28 schools in his district. His superintendent is setting up a channel to communicate with all the district principals, a channel for all staff, and then one that's community-wide. It's more effective than Twitter or Facebook, PA opines. To me, going into that realm never seemed like a good fit because of the public nature. This protects the kids' privacy. Says PA, technology is an enhancer of what we're trying to do. It doesn't matter what the application is, it's meant to improve things. When he had a site council election to solicit parental volunteers to represent the school on budgetary issues, he figured it'd be a pain as usual. In the past, it was like pulling teeth to get people to even know about it. But I sent out a remind saying any parent who would like to be considered, please add your name to the Google Doc. I had 15 parents volunteer for 6 positions, and I had to run an election. I'd never had to do that before. Technology is being used to reshape so many aspects of the educational landscape. This introduction to a handful of the innovators just scratches the surface of important developments. Looking across the broad landscape of innovations, what's clear is that it's not the technology-only approach that some technologists have advocated, but human-computer symbiosis that is leading to the most effective and the most humane solutions. The best of both fuzzy and techie. In the various blended approaches, from Esther Wojcicki's journalism classrooms to James Sanders's breakout EDU games, from Sugata Mitra's concept of self-organized learning environments to Diane Taverner's playlist approach, the teacher is increasingly becoming the coach, one aided by technology. At Summit, teachers monitor a dashboard displaying how students are progressing in real time, who's getting stuck, and who needs more help. The teacher is in the same physical space as the students. The students leverage technology to access their daily playlists. This approach is not about replacing the school with all technology and no walls. It's about online education. It's about bringing the best of technology into the classroom and reinventing the roles of teachers. Kelly Hogan, a biologist and director of instructional innovation for the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, UNC, found that active learning in the classroom raised average test scores by 3%, and double that for first-generation college students and African American students. In her study, Getting Under the Hood, How and for Whom Does Increasing Course Structure Work?, published in CBE, Life Sciences Education in 2014, she looked at data from 6 semesters of her 400-person Intro to Biology class at UNC, comparing student achievement in classes with low course structure and higher course structure. Low course structure was defined as traditional lecture hall approaches, whereas high course structure had preparatory homework and in-class activities, such as using classroom response software on laptops and mobile phones. Hogan deduced that by giving students online assignments to complete before class, she could provide more team-based in-class exercises. As these team-based exercises were more active, there was less in-class lecturing or command and control teaching. It helped students get more out of their reading and had a dramatic impact on those students who might otherwise have been less inclined to speak out during class or communicate their preparedness. Overall, her students performed well in moderately structured sessions that struck a balance, where the teacher played the role of coach. By using technology to help provide shorter-form engagements followed by interruption for memory consolidation, these moderately structured environments can likely help students learn more effectively. Jeffrey Karpicki is a psychologist at Purdue University who studies human learning and memory. Through his research, he's found that it's imperative to practice information retrieval, that is, the recovery of information from your long-term memory. In a 2011 study, retrieval practice produces more learning than elaborative studying with concept mapping, published in Science. Karpicki sorted college students into 4 random groups and gave each of them several scientific paragraphs to memorize. The experiment pitted a variety of study methods against one another. Some students read the material repeatedly, as many times as they could. Others read the material in several short bursts, and still others drew elaborative concept maps of the material. The last group of students took a retrieval practice test, in which they wrote everything they could remember about the material in a free-form essay. When all the groups were tested on the paragraphs a week later, the students who did the retrieval practice test outperformed every other group. Karpicki found that retrieval is not merely a readout of the knowledge stored in one's mind. The act of reconstructing knowledge itself enhances learning. Karpicki believes that when we practice retrieving information, we are creating a set of cues that our brains can use later on. We are laying down breadcrumbs in our mind, ways to find our way back. Ironically, students using other techniques felt overconfident about how prepared they were, while students using retrieval techniques felt somewhat underprepared but then outperformed the rest of the students. The results were clear. Practicing retrieval of information has measurable impact on performance. When technology is used to help self-directed students learn at their own pace while leveraging teacher coaching with efficient interruptions for memory consolidation and information retrieval, it can be an immense asset. Technology alone cannot be seen as a panacea for all the problems that besiege the world of education, but by blending these approaches, by bringing together the best of both fuzzies and techies, we have a chance to improve it. 7. Building a better world. Gabo Aurora studied philosophy and film at New York University. While he is no technology dystopian, he is concerned about how our always-on devices may be affecting us. He turns his Wi-Fi router off at night to unplug from the barrage of the web. "I feel like it's doing something bad for my brain," he says, laughing in self-deprecation, given his line of work. He is a virtual reality (VR) filmmaker, working with the newest breed of technology expected to compete for our attention. "My son is in a Waldorf school. He's 5 and has no idea what an iPad is. I consider that a badge of pride," Aurora says. "But at the same time, I don't find it to be a contradiction to try to understand how our technology can do good for humanity." He is a leader in exploring that potential for VR. Aurora is the award-winning creator of the United Nations virtual reality film series. He has directed half a dozen award-winning VR films, which have graced screens at the Sundance Film Festival and Cannes Film Festival. He's also shown them to the business and political leaders who gather for the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, as well as to the United Nations General Assembly. The films are about some of humanity's gravest recent challenges: the Syrian refugee crisis, Ebola in Liberia, the 2015 earthquake in Nepal, pollution in China, Amazon deforestation, the rights of women in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Aurora had never worked with VR film until he met pioneering VR director Chris Milk, who runs a production studio called Within, and has now collaborated with Aurora on a number of films. The two met at a party thrown by rock band U2, for which Milk had made music videos, while Aurora had worked with the band's lead singer Bono on anti-poverty campaigns. Milk has helped Aurora to use the power of VR to give viewers an immersive experience that simulates actually traveling to tragedy-stricken locations that they would not otherwise be able to visit, enveloping the viewer in their sights and sounds. He has introduced viewers to Syrian refugees in Jordan, survivors of Ebola in Liberia, and mothers of sons and daughters lost in Palestine. In Clouds Over Sidra, the VR headset puts you in the middle of a classroom in the Zatari refugee camp in Jordan. And as you turn around to survey the scene, you might lock eyes with a child who momentarily looks up from her notebook. The experience is truly visceral. You are there. Just as in the film Waves of Grace, you are on the roof of an abandoned hotel in war-torn Monrovia, Liberia, listening to the joyous voice of a woman accompanied by a man playing an olive oil can guitar, looking over at a sunset with the breeze on your face, and feeling admiration for the resilience of this pair of survivors. Aurora's mission is to instill not only a better understanding of these problems, but also empathy for the people enduring them. His official day job is as a senior advisor to the UN Secretary General, making recommendations about which issues the UN should focus on. He never expected to go into humanitarian policy work, but as with so many of the liberal arts graduates we've met in earlier chapters, the insights, skills, and concerns he developed through his education have helped him excel in the work. He's becoming a trailblazer in finding a socially valuable application for a new kind of technology that some tech analysts have viewed with trepidation, if not outright scorn. For example, writing in the New York Times about a new VR headset being developed by Microsoft, the paper's longtime media equation columnist David Carr posited, "The amount of actual, unencumbered reality we experience seems endangered. What is it about our current reality that is so insufficient that we feel compelled to augment or improve it?"